Chains, Chapter 27. The British thrashed the Patriots like in a big battle in Brooklyn. Thrashed them, but good. They killed or captured nearly 1,000 rebels and sent the rest scurrying away. After the worst of the battle, the skies opened up again, and we all waited, us in a house with leaking windows and a damp parlor, the soldiers in open fields and muddy ditches, for the rain to stop. Madame wore a groove in the floor, pacing back and forth, awaiting the news of the final British victory, her footsteps tipping and tapping in a measure with the clicking of the clock. I poked at the logs in the kitchen hearth, trying to summon back the bees so that they would chase out the thoughts invading my brain pan. But the words of the bald man echoed. Would the British truly free me? Should I flee to them? What about Ruth? Would they help me find her? The firewood was wet and green and could not catch. It smothered and smoked and made a terrible stink. When the morning came, a thick fog smothered New York, the kind Mamma called a pea souper. The fog finally lifted, and the American army was not to be found. Washington's men had spent the dark night and foggy morning rowing all of the troops back to the New York Island, some 9,000 men, folks said. That Washington was a conjure man for sure. The madam took to her bed when Becky brought back the news. I muttered a quiet blast and continued to eat my dinner, porridge with a dried apple. Becky didn't hear me. She was going on and on about the nasty things she'd passed by at the campgrounds. And there was this one lad, he had his hand blown clean off and a grubby bandage wrapped around his wrist, and I looked at that and said to myself, that arm's coming off next, young man, and maybe your leg for good measure, too, on account of the noxious pestilence that filled the air, the stench of that place, the groans and the moans. She shivered with gruesome delight. If I had a stronger stomach, I'd take a nurse job, but help a bit with the washing of the wounds and that alike. But with this heat and the flies, you just know the wounds would be maggoty by morning, and if there's one thing I can't abide, it's the sight of maggots in living flesh. I looked into my bowl, and the dried apple bits curled like fresh-hatched maggots. I stopped eating. Becky ladled out her own meal. They're all saying that this proves the Lord himself is on the side of the rebellion, on account of the fog he created. Did the same thing for them back in Boston, blew the thick mist so that the American armies could win the day. It seemed to me that if God really wanted the Americans to win, he would have sent sea monsters to devour the British fleet when it left Boston. As I went to empty my porridge into the scraps bucket, Becky pointed to her own bowl. I filled it with my leftovers and commanded my belly to stop flopping, so at the sight of the curly apples. Becky paused with her spoon. Makes a body wonder, though. What? I asked. Washington had them melt down the church bells and remake them into cannons. That will surely displease the Lord, I say. If God switches sides and allows the British to take New York, you'll see me headed for Jersey, back pay or no back pay. I'm not sitting here waiting to get carved into pieces by them beastly redcoats. It took me 8 days of slow trips to the market and the water pump before I finally spied Curzon working with other men to set up a filthy tent in the mud of the Battery campgrounds. It was good to see him not dead or chopped up.